As Shannon said, my name, is my screen still coming through? I assume, looks good, great. My name is Elizabeth Thelmany. I am in the Department of Ag and Resource Economics here in College Park at UMD. And I also am affiliated with the Ag Law Education Initiative. You'll also notice that Paul Ganger is on this project. We also have some lovely interns from the ComSci department, computer science department here at University of Maryland College Park, who have been integral in helping us develop this resource to promote grain producers' budgeting efforts. So let's get started. As University of Maryland, we do not discriminate. We try to accommodate everyone. Let us know if you need anything. And then we have this quick little. Great. So we're going to start today's presentation with what is likely a refresher for most of you. This will help us set the groundwork to get into the tool and explore it a bit. Again, it's really an overview. There's much more detailed educational programming and resources out there from University of Maryland Extension, as well as other institutions across the country. So really we want to kick off with going over the importance of record keeping, financial record keeping for your guys' productions. So record keeping really isn't just about satisfying the IRS or lenders. It's about running a successful farm. Every decision on the farm has financial implications, whether it's revenue, costs, or both. Without diligent record keeping, you could see yourself almost operating in the dark. For example, a producer with detailed records might notice that certain fields are consistently underperforming and can take steps to address those issues. And so it really helps shed the light, especially when paired with the correct tools. And we'll get into that later in this presentation with great tools and resources to help bolster what you can do with your operation. Some hindrances to diligent record keeping. Record keeping can feel tedious. It's not always as rewarding as other farm tasks or other things. So you think of yourself spraying weeds or feeding the livestock, and you see the direct benefit to your operation. Whereas the benefits of record keeping can take months or even years to materialize. So patience, that's why I included this little image here, is really important when you're thinking about the payoff of taking the time to do the record keeping. An example is without accurate records, you might not realize that rising input costs, whether it's the fertilizers or the seed, genetics, so on, are actually reducing your profit margins on corn. So you might be seeing that you're getting more, your income, your gross profit is increasing, but you're actually getting less net profit from it because of other rising input costs. So it's just great to keep tabs on that. That's a great practice to have in mind. A well-documented farm operation provides a clear picture of what's working, what's not working. Again, this isn't just for the benefit of those looking at your operation, it's also for the benefit of you as the operators. So record keeping has its important moments in both the tough and good times. So during profitable years, you might think that record keeping might not be as important, or thinking about financials isn't as necessary. But it's really important to reflect so that you can afford overextending your operation. Like asking yourself, can I afford this new piece of equipment I might want right now? It's better to ask yourself, can I afford the equipment over its lifetime of having to pay off this new piece of equipment? So this is really going to help with planning for long-term stability. You're not only looking at short-term gains. So getting into some of the vocab, use cash flow projections to evaluate the affordability of large purchases over their lifespan. So a grain producer like yourself who tracks trends in production costs can better decide if a major equipment purchase aligns with long-term goals. Again, not just by looking at this year or the year before, but looking 5 years ahead. more specifically, let's say corn prices reach $6 per bushel. That's great, right? It might be tempting to buy a new combine, but if you have detailed records that you're referencing, as well as doing some cash flow analysis, this might reveal that your break-even price for the equipment requires more like $6.50 a bushel over the next 5 years. So really making that purchase is risky because you're making assumptions and hoping that things continue to go that well to really help with that specific example of a purchase. But also record keeping, this is a little more intuitive, is really important in the hard times when you're budgeting and trying to keep track of all the costs to, hopefully maximize your profits. You can identify areas like specific fields or ventures where adjustments could reduce losses. And again, this is highlighting that not just record keeping in 1 year, but keeping good record over the many years of your productions so that you can see what the trends are and what has and has not been working. Another example is helping you reevaluating your rental terms for unprofitable fields. If one field is just not performing and you're renting that out or something, maybe you have more leverage if you have numbers to back up that this field is just not performing the way it should and we shouldn't have to pay this much, things like that. Another example is a producer might find that prepaying expenses for tax reasons distorts management decisions unless properly accounted for. So again, record keeping is vital. That is the moral of these first few introductory slides. So again, some of the terms you've probably heard or come across before, I'll just go over quickly again. So you have your net worth statement, really a snapshot of your farm's financial health. This tracks assets like storing grain inventory and equipment value, and liabilities like loans for grain bins or harvesting equipment. The net income statement, on the other hand, shows whether your farm is profitable at over time. So it reveals how profitability your corn and soybean production was over the past year. The cash flow statement tracks the movement of money. It helps you track whether input costs for seed, fertilizer, and herbicide align with the timing of grain sale revenues. And then lastly on here, we have the owner equity statement. This really reveals how your financial position evolves over time. So it's really there to show your farm's financial position and whether it's improved or declined over the year, whether it has something to do with increased costs here or there or paying off different equipment loans. So this image I included on this slide is to really show that they all are interconnected, and these records are important all together for comprehensive farm management. So detailed records are important, not just keeping records. So again, that we can really hone in on what needs to be adjusted. It will help. An example is doing like per unit calculation production cost. So if you're calculating what it costs, that it costs $4.20 to produce a bushel of corn, but market prices are $4, you might decide to reduce inputs or use futures contracts to lock in higher prices when they're available. So kind of getting into that nitty gritty, because once you multiply that across your entire operation, it can, end up at a big loss in that specific example. Again, we'll get into the tool to show how you can look at these things with the records now that you're being refreshed on improved record keeping and keeping diligent with those. And also that understanding cost can help you explore alternative uses for resources, like investing in grain storage to sell at a higher price later, things like that. There's tools out there for record keeping beyond what we're going to show you. I'm sure you've all heard of these: QuickBooks, Excel, handwritten notes. At the end of the day, the most important thing is to figure out what works for you. What works for me works very differently than, for example, for my dad. He has very different systems of keeping up with his financial records when it comes to tax season than when it comes to me. So it's most sustainable if you figure out what works for you and your operation. Hopefully the tool we show you can come in handy, but if it doesn't work for you, just keep doing what is working for you. That's what's most important. And because at the end of the day, any record keeping is better than none. Start simple. Of course, the more detailed, the better, but anything is better than nothing. All those throwing out all those phrases for you guys. The other thing, when I've been sharing these tools with some of the ag service providers out there in Maryland, is they talk about that there's other farm data that comes with equipment and other things that you guys might already have implemented on your farms to make sure that you're thinking about, whether it's your new combine harvester that is measuring different things as you harvest, and like creation of maps that you can tap into. So it can get complicated quickly, but there's resources and data that you might have that you might not be thinking about. So another thing to keep in mind. Now that we're done with those slides, we'll get into our actual tool. So really excited to show this to you guys. Really the overarching goal of this work, we were funded by the Northeast Risk Management Education Center out of Delaware. University of Maryland Extension is committed to keeping our data resources updated and beneficial to Maryland producers. So this is a collaborative effort with University of Maryland Extension and the Department of Ag and Resource Economics, us here in College Park. And we're really working on this tool to bridge the gap between the data that exists and what you all might have for your own operations, your own record keeping, to support best decisions for your operation to make it less risky, more efficient, more profitable, and answer questions like, am I paying a fair price? Some benchmarking and other things like that. So at the next few slides, you'll see we have this QR code and this short link, go.umd.edu/EFMD. This is our tool as it stands today that you can start poking around with. We will get into more hands-on looking at it here in a minute, but you can start poking around if you wish. The EFMD stands for Elevating Farm Management Data. So that helps you remember this short little link. So it's the same resource that Shannon and the Maryland Grain Marketing team have been putting out for 10 plus years. So you guys are hopefully all familiar with the field crop budgets that are released from UME that take in a bunch of data from across the state and other extension providers and so forth to provide estimates for the state. So you guys aren't starting from zero. You have your own record keeping, but if you need help trying to figure out a number or something, it's there for you as an estimate. So we're taking these Excel sheets and then we're putting it into a tool. So again, if you're used to using these crop budgets, this is the exact same data, just in a different format that if it works for you, hopefully you use. If you want to stay with the Excel, that's great as well. Right now we're working on expanding our documentation and creating tutorials, even just videos like this, that goes through what we've made and how to use it and best case uses for it. At the end of the day, we're really just trying to make your lives easier with this website, make budgeting more enjoyable possibly, but also know that at the end of the day, the loved resources, these Excel sheets are not going anywhere. They will continue to be up as well. I always forget to say this is completely free. You can just click around. There's no, really, there's nothing you'll lose by just checking out this website. Again, so we're taking these Excel budgets that some of you have probably seen before, and then we're turning it into a website version. Because at the end of the day, organized financial record keeping that we're trying to boost because we want you all to be more profitable and have less risk in your businesses. Things you might have also used like Intuit, TurboTax, QuickBooks, where they make your life easier through the use of these platforms, but this one's free and provided by Extension. Also, at the end of like putting in your numbers and working with it, you can actually download your budgets as Excel files. So if you need to still provide the numbers in an Excel format, you can do so without having to do too much work. So this is an example. Again, we'll walk through it together on the website, but for now, some screenshots of what, once you put your numbers in for a specific field, some of the results you'll get and some of the analysis and things you can start to interpret from the values that you've plugged in about a specific field for a specific year, yada, yada, yada. So on the left here, we have our summary table that we give you, we have both the per acre and whole field. You can toggle either one metrics. Then we have a bar chart that really visually compares the total expected gross income in the green with the variable and fixed costs summed up in this orange color. And then we have a sensitivity analysis table to evaluate the impact of different yield and price fluctuations you might see throughout a year. Again, this is stuff that has been in the Excel sheets as formulas, and this is just another way of showing those. The summary table acts as a financial dashboard of your operation for a specific field. These metrics can help you identify inefficiencies, mitigate risks, and plan strategically for the future. We'll go through examples of that. Then with our sensitivity analysis, that gives you another way of seeing how what changes in yield and or prices can have on the profitability of a certain field, so that it might help you guide decisions on whether to buy crop insurance or just acreage allocation, given what you're seeing from that table. Another feature that we have besides the specific operation budgeting is a market analysis tab. So you can just see the general trends across the state from these estimates that we've had on what the values look like. Again, can explore it more, but these are based on those University of Maryland Extension, the grain marketing team's derived estimates. So Shannon's working hard right now on getting the 2025 ones out. And this allows us to track financial trends over time for different things. And we'll look at it and show you guys more examples. So this tool and our efforts right now are really to improve the accuracy and support you all in doing having best management practices for financial record keeping and some analysis of your operation and checking in and making the best decisions for the profitability of your farm. We've been working with a beta team, so ag service providers and some producers themselves, as we've developed this tool over the last 6 months or so, to make sure that is in the most usable format for all of you, and that the people who would be using it are the ones who have the most input. And then at the end of the day, providing you all the knowledge, the resources, the tools to sustain your operations. I always like to put that this disclaimer out there that we are always making improvements and working out bugs. We are, again, making this website completely free. We're learning as we go. There's really nothing quite out there across the country. And so if you do find issues or weird wording, just know that we would appreciate you letting us know so that we can make the fixes, but that again, this is an initial version of the tool that we hope to continue to make better. So if you do come across a bug, just be patient with us. And with that, let's do a walkthrough demonstration. If anyone has any questions, I've been monitoring the chat box, but you also feel free to speak up. And I'm happy to take questions from now on because it's now more interactive and participatory. So yeah, the lecture slides are over for now, but again, I hope my screen is still sharing. Great. This is if you go to that link, the go.umd. And I can put it in the chat real quick. So when you go to this website, this is what you'll come across. So there is an option to create an account and log in. You do not have to do either of these to participate or utilize this website. So really, we want you guys to just poke around, see if it's useful. And then if you think it is useful, create an account, keep updated with what we're making. And I'll show you some of the nice functionalities of having an account with us. So the first thing I want to point out is that we have this about section. It explains again some of the stuff I've covered in this presentation. Things to keep in mind. We have a survey that's just Qualtrics if there's anything you want to give us feedback on anonymously. Then we also would love to hear from you all. We know that this is a lot. This is a brand new tool, so Shannon and I are happy to walk through it on a Zoom. And if you're interested in learning more or need one-on-one assistance, we're here for you. And some other notes about this product that we're providing. So going back, the first thing you'll come to is this enterprise budgeting. Again, logging in, creating an account is completely optional. The first thing to do is add a field budget, and it'll take you to the screen where you have to name your field. So we could say, for today, it's a demo, and how many acres this field is. So again, you can do it by field. You don't have to just do your entire operation. So let's say this field is 33 acres and that we're in Calvert County. You have options of non-irrigated, irrigated pasture, and then the year. So what we're doing is we're pulling from the USDA's National Ag Statistics Service. They provide annual county rental rate estimates. And so this is helping pull that value up for you all. So this is the rate it pulled up, and then you can change it. All of the values that you're faced with, you can change to make sure it actually reflects your operation. But it's nice because it doesn't, you're starting with estimates pre-populated into this tool. You're not starting with a 0 or from scratch. So we'll just stick with the 56 for now. Then you come to this step 2, where we're actually going to go through some of the costs. So we're here in Calvert County. You get to choose which budget you want to start with. So again, we're really focused on utilizing the grain estimates that we already have. We do eventually think it would be really nice to have other cropping systems and so forth pre-populated. But for now, if you were trying to plan your 5-acre pasture with mixed animals, you could start the blank budget and use the blank budget feature. It just does not have the pre-populated values like the other ones, the grain budgets do. So let's say we're doing corn non-irrigated. This takes all of those lovely numbers from 2024 that are in those Excel sheets that some of you have seen and puts them into this website. So you can see we have our variable costs and we have our fixed costs. These are per acre. We also start with our expected gross income, which is how many bushels, so the quantity of bushels per acre, and then the price we're expecting for that. So let's say you were able to lock in a higher price, maybe you got it at 510, you can make that adjustment. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. We were at 160. And we were saying we were going to be at 510. So you'll see that we can adjust these numbers. And we're having a little glitch. So again, bear with us as we are still ironing out some of the things. But we started with 503, and I was saying if we were at 510, let's say we walked in a little bit of a higher rate, this would be our value. A lot of us in Maryland, we might get government payments or subsidies for best management practices. So you could add another gross income stream like a government payment. And so let's say we're getting an extra $5 an acre for some riparian buffer, something we've put in. We can add that here as well. Then we go into our variable costs, and as you can see, all this is editable. You can change the name of the item, the units, the quantity, the price. You can delete, you can add. So it's, again, pre-populating with what the grain marketing team found as best estimates across the entire state. But we understand that these probably don't reflect your operations as is. So this is your opportunity to make those changes. And then you click through. I'll just keep everything else as is for now. And then you land on this summary of your operation for this specific field. So you have your per acre breakdown. You also can do your whole field breakdown. You have this visual depiction of how your income stacks up against your costs, both your variable costs and your fixed costs. And again, that sensitivity table. So And then you have that option to add another field to your enterprise. You can see that you can also export it to Excel, like I had said before. And then we can go on like that. Also want to point out the market analysis tab. So this is the screenshot I was showing before. This is a way to track the income per bushel of our different grain commodities in Maryland over time. And so you can see how those vary, as well as other trends, whether it's the budgets for wheat. We also have how land rental rates, whether it's irrigated, non-irrigated pasture, have changed over time. These again are Maryland state averages. Estimated fertilizer cost per pound. So again, this is to really help you understand how specific things that in the market might impact your operation. And then the about where we started. So I'm not seeing any questions so far. For now, thank you, Olivia. So she asked, do the averages only populate from Maryland or other states? For now, it is just Maryland. Shannon can speak let me know if I'm misspeaking, but we do work with Delaware. So I would say that the estimates are probably still pretty close to some of the things they're seeing in Delaware. But for now, it's really just Maryland, and then, yeah, again, maybe Delaware. There are other resources out there, like from the University of Minnesota. There's the Center for Farm Financial Management, CFFM, and they put out budgets and some of these similar resources for the I states like the Midwest. But yeah, I mean, we're funded by the Northeast, so if this goes successful, then maybe we can add other states or regions as this tool and resource keeps developing. Great. I'm going to, so as you can see, I've logged in. I wanted to show the functionality of being logged in and go over some more specifics. So I'm logged in with my email. The process is pretty simple. You create an account. So you put an email and then you have a password. You can show the password. You accept these terms and conditions, which are standard of University of Maryland. And then you'll get an email and it'll have like a verification code. I think it's like 7 numbers or something. And you type that in your email, you verify it, you have an account. We will not be sending any emails or anything like that. It's really there as a resource for you, so that you can log in and then you can save data. So you could save previous years, you can save your current operation. And so you don't have to type it in every single time. It would be saved to your account. And then the only time we'll get an email is if we have a major update that we want you to be aware of with the tool. But again, maybe like 2 emails a year, nothing out of the ordinary. Great. So I'm going to quickly, I set these up as demos for today, so we can go through them. So we're in Calvert, non-irrigated. One sec. Move some things around so I have better view of my screen. I need to log in. Gotcha. Okay, log in again. Great. So we're going to look at this 150 acres and Anne Arundel, non-irrigated. I added again that government payment for best practices. And then I kept everything else as is. I think I did increase the operating capital that was needed, but what this is doing is it's calculating and estimating based off of the inputs that you have, and that you're financing it for 6 months at this interest rate, how much you're paying in interest as operating interest, and we also have it for fixed interest. So again, going through this, what does the summary table mean and why is it important? We'll see the breakdown of our total variable costs and total fixed costs. Again, we're at per acre. You can switch to whole field as well. That's just multiplying the number of acres that we put in. And again, this is a visual representation of those numbers, this graph here. So we can see that our variable costs, the seed, the fertilizer, the fuel, all of that makes up almost $450 per acre. Then our total fixed costs are $262 and some. And then we sum that up to the total cost. These right now, we're going to make them a little easier to read or prettier, as you may say. But for now, they do tell you what's being calculated. Then we can calculate our total expected gross income by summing up our two income sources, our expected yield per acre. Then we get into things like the break-even production bushel per acre. So we're seeing that we need 35.5 bushels per acre to cover our costs. This is probably seen as a relatively low threshold to our expected yield of 160 bushels. So if you're looking at your numbers and you're reflecting on what you're seeing, you could see that as a low break even, a confidence boost, and that even with moderate yield reductions, you're still in a good position to cover your costs for this field. Our break even price per unit is $4.41. And so that helps us keep an eye on market trends and consider pricing strategies to make sure that we stay over 441 so that we're breaking even. Again, so these are numbers that were in the Excel sheets that are now displayed in the summary chart. And so one thing I wanted to show, well, let me go through the sensitivity analysis table so make sure that's clear. This is helping us understand how our expected gross income could change based off of yields going up or down or price going up and down. So we're expecting a yield of 160, and if our yield goes up by 25% to around 200, we can see the changes. So right now we're expecting 160 at $3,224 in gross income. So again, if the price stays the same, but our yields go up by 25%, then we would expect a gross income of closer to 4,000. It goes the same as if our yields decrease by 25% due to like we had those droughts or so forth, and it drops, then our gross expected income is $2,418. And so that is what the sensitivity analysis table hopefully will help you all see. And then if we go, let's see, something you could look at is, okay, do I want to expand my operation? Do I want to add a 50-acre plot that might be available? And so what I did is, again, Anne Arundel, non-irrigated 50 acres, but making this assumption that we're not going to get the government payment, it's actually irrigated, and that we're going to be paying $10 more an acre than what we have been paying. What is the result? So before we actually have to make that decision, we can plug in the numbers and see. And so at the end of the day, we could see an additional $1,157 in gross income for our operation by adding these 50 acres. And so that allows you to sit down with your family, your accountant, whoever else is important, and making these decisions and decide, is that extra $1,000 some worth renting another 50 acres and all the effort, or is that too low of an expected gross income addition to your operation, and maybe it's not worth it. So that's another great thing that you can do with this tool, is you can really think about how you could expand or change your operation, run some of the numbers in the tool without making the changes, and then see what the estimates are. So another great case use for it. So with that, that was everything I planned to cover with this tool. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to walk through any other more examples you might have ideas for, anything like that. Any feedback if you've been playing around with the tool and you found something that we need to fix, always happy to hear those as well. If not, I
Hey,
hope you all,
Elizabeth.
yeah,
I was just going to come off mute because it seems a little bit easier. I'm wondering, this is a great tool. One of the things that I've heard quite a bit about is like equipment depreciation. When thinking about that, how might you incorporate something like that into this tool?
yeah. Um, right now, the if we're using the tool as is and we didn't make any changes, it'd probably be best to go into the fixed cost, that interest box, and then add your expected depreciation value there, because that would be across the field as like the fixed cost. But that's definitely something for us to keep in mind of how to make this tool more useful and also provide resources on how to use the tool, is keeping in mind best practices for depreciating equipment. So I don't know if Shannon wants to add anything.
Sure. So the fixed costs here are, we do use, as Elizabeth mentioned, the custom rates, which includes the cost of equipment. It also includes fuel, lube, and labor. So those are calculated through the custom rates. If you were looking at trying to do some type of replacement value, or say an example would be you have a combine and it's paid off, or a tractor is paid off, you are going to have something that you allocate an expense to that tractor, because at some point you're going to need to replace it. Other than that, generally depreciation would be on like a profit and loss statement. This enterprise budget is probably looking more about grain marketing, how much to market per bushel and some of those costs. But I think one thing that people don't do is, especially if it's equipment that's paid off, is they're not allocating an expense towards that piece of equipment. And you want to make sure that you do that.
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
It's a great question. And I would consider it more replacement value than necessarily depreciation. There any other questions? We've got a couple resource links there in the chat, so feel free to check them out. We will be coming out with 2025 data here hopefully soon. We're still trying to get some more custom rate responses back from our farmers around the state. And we do hope to have those 2025 numbers updated soon. All right, well, thank you, everyone.